And thank you for that. We are delighted to welcome you all to this webinar with the title, Harnessing the Lagoon Management Framework for Sustainability and Climate Resilient Strategies. This webinar is hosted by the AutoAid National Research Hub Nigeria and the Resilient Lagoon Network. It's a pleasure to see so many of us here virtually gathered from various parts of the world, all with a shared interest in the conservation and resilience of lagoon ecosystem. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Fumilayo Doherty. I'm the National Coordinator, the AutoAid National Research Hub Nigeria. I'm also a member of the Resilient Lagoon Network, and I am the Acting Director, Research Support and Grant Management Center, Yaba College of Technology, Lagos, Nigeria. So I just want to give us a brief about the two organizations hosting this webinar. The AutoAid National Research Hub Nigeria is a hub created to offer support and is a platform for exchange of ideas for researchers across various disciplines in Nigeria. And we have some collaborating institutions in the hub. The Yaba College of Technology, Lagos is one of the institutions. The University of Port Harcourt, the University of Nigeria Nsukka, University of Lagos, the University of Calabar, Federal Teaching Hospital Gombe, and the Institute of Mangrove Ecology and Environmental Technology, Delta State, are all collaborating institutions in the hub. And we are all affiliated to the AutoAid UK. The vision of the hub is to empower researchers, embracing and contributing to sustainable research ecosystem to increase the national research value chain in Nigeria. Now, the Resilient Lagoon Network was developed through the GCRF grant received by the team. Some members of the team are here. Deb is here, Sian is here. Sian is one of the co-founders. And the aim is to link researchers, policymakers, and practitioners to lagoon communities, providing a platform to share experiences and understand key challenges affecting the lagoon. We bring together cross-disciplinary expertise and practice to build a multiple perspective and broad understanding needed to respond to the problems of lagoon communities. So this is just a brief about the two organizations. Now, what are lagoons? Lagoons are unique ecosystems, like we all know, situated at the crossroad of land and sea, where fresh water and marine waters blend. They are biodiversity hotspots, and lagoons are vital to our planet's ecological balance. They also provide sustenance, livelihood to countless communities across the world. But these lagoons are facing a multitude of challenges: pollution, habitat degradation, climate change, threatening their very existence. And this is one of the reasons why we're having this webinar, because lagoons are important. They support high biodiversity, and we need to look at how to sustain the lagoon. So we are privileged to have Dr. Sian Davis-Volum. She's an esteemed expert in lagoon ecosystem and a prominent member and co-founder of the Resilient Lagoon Network, like I mentioned earlier. She is our key presenter. Dr. Sian has conducted extensive research in the field of lagoon ecology and has contributed significantly to the development of sustainable practice for lagoon preservation. She is a professor of environmental geoscience at the University of Nottingham, where she is also Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology. She has held...
So it is better you pay up. The earlier you pay
can
up,
we, Dr. Ogunlade, can you just mute, please? Thank you. So Dr. Sian is a professor of environmental geoscience at the University of Nottingham, where she's also Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology. She has held academic posts in the US and UK. She has conducted field-based research in North America, Europe, and Africa. She has successfully published on topics related to climate change, understanding coastal and river systems, and the sustainability of coastline. So she co-leads the Resilient Lagoon Network, and she has been studying lagoons in West Africa since 2014. So before I call on Dr. Sian, because let me just run through the outline of this webinar. Shortly after this introduction, we have the presentation by the speaker, and then we're going to have the Q&A session. The Q&A session will be coordinated by Dr. Deb Raha. She's also a member of the Resilient Lagoon Network. She's a lecturer in international entrepreneurship and society at the business school at the University of Lincoln. And she will be coordinating the Q&A session. Shortly after the Q&A session, she will also be sharing the survey link. And then after that, we'll have the conclusion by Professor, excuse me, Professor Eukaria Nwachi, who is a member of the Nigeria Hub, AutoAid Nigeria Hub. She's a professor of environmental biochemistry and toxicology and director of academic planning, research, and control unit at the University of Port Harcourt. Professor Eukaria is the South-South coordinator of the AutoAid National Research Hub. We also have other members of the Resilient Lagoon here, and because of time, I will not be able to call every one of us, but I believe people will introduce themselves in the chat room. So right now, I want to hand over to the speaker, Professor Sian, to take over the virtual podium.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome, Dr. Doherty. I am very pleased to be here. I'm going to share my screen, so hopefully that will work. So let me know if you can see that. Can everybody see that okay? Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much. So I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to present today. Thank you for the invitation. I do need to acknowledge all of my colleagues at who work with the Resilient Lagoon Network. So we have colleagues from the UK, from Benin, from Nigeria, and from Ghana in that network. So what I'm presenting today is their collective work, and I'm just the presenter. So I want to acknowledge all of that, and I want to acknowledge the support we received from a GCRF grant that enabled us to do this work on lagoons and bring this network together. So let me tell you a little bit about the Resilient Lagoon Network. So we work together, we work collaboratively, we're an interdisciplinary group. Can you see that okay, everybody? Okay, good. It looks a bit strange on my screen, so I just wanted to check that. We have members from 10 institutions in the UK, Ghana, Nigeria, and Benin. We have expertise across natural and social sciences. We're very interdisciplinary, and we're really working together to secure the future of lagoons. We've heard how they are really critical, really important, but they're very vulnerable coastal environments. And we've created a platform to share solutions, address challenges, and also we've developed a framework that we believe meets the requirements to govern lagoons sustainably. And I'm going to be sharing that with you a little later after I've talked a little bit more about our work. So you will know that coastal lagoons are very important environments across West Africa. You can see from the map here, I've circled some of the major urban areas: Abidjan in Ivory Coast, Accra in Ghana, Lomé in Togo, Porto Novo and Cotonou in Benin, and Lagos in Nigeria. Those are large urban areas. In West Africa, the bulk of the megacities are located at the coast, and they're located around lagoons. You will know, many of you are from Lagos, and you will know how rapidly that city is growing. It's the fastest growing urban area in Africa. These urban areas are located where they are because of what lagoons have provided to those communities, to those areas. And you can see a number of pictures here that illustrate the variety of lagoons in the region. A couple of those come from Lagos, but they come from across the region. You can also get a sense of some of the challenges faced by those lagoons from what's in the pictures there. So both urban and rural lagoons are impacted by a whole range of environmental challenges. West Africa's coastal lagoons are some of the most climate vulnerable coastal areas in the world. And according to a 2019 study by the World Bank, a combination of flooding, erosion and pollution, and this is just for 4 countries in the region that were studied, came to nearly $4 billion. So really important economically, socially, environmentally. So hopefully you'll get a sense then of why lagoons matter and why ensuring the sustainable governance of the lagoons in West Africa is absolutely vital to communities, both rural and urban, to ecosystems and to economies. Those lagoons provide ecosystem services to the communities around them, whether they be small-scale rural communities or large urban communities and urban areas such as Lagos. They provide livelihoods. They provide support to industries. They are a source of health and well-being, or they can be if governed sustainably. And they provide resources to the communities that surround them and communities beyond. And they provide food security as they're a key source of fish. They link to some of the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to come back to the Sustainable Development Goals later. But the key ones that they link to are providing clean water and sanitation, supporting sustainable cities and communities. They are very challenged by issues of climate change, and they're obviously important for life below water. But we'll come back to the SDGs a bit later. So hopefully you can, get a sense of why lagoons matter in multiple ways. So at the Resilient Lagoon Network, we've mapped and looked at and thought about the many challenges that lagoons are facing in West Africa. And you can see the complexity here on the map that we've produced. There are challenges related to population growth and migration to coastlines. There are challenges related to sanitation, challenges related to waste management, challenges related to resource management, and then also the impacts of climate change, whether that be sea level rise, alteration to rainfall patterns, increases in water temperature, changes to storminess that cause erosion and flooding. These challenges are all interconnected and complex. They represent an interweaving of human and environmental problems. And it takes a really look at these across disciplines and across multiple institutions to be able to govern sustainably. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the detail of some of the impacts of climate change and development rate-related impacts. And then I'll go on to talk about the framework for sustainable governance of lagoons in the region that we've developed, considering all of these different challenges. So the impacts of climate change in the region. Sea level rise is approximately 3 millimeters per year. Actually, in the region, probably a bit more of that. It causes erosion and increases the flood risks to lagoon communities and lagoon urban areas. Changes to rainfall and temperature patterns have altered natural cycles that we see in lagoons. They've altered ecosystems of lagoons. Changes to climate have also altered fish catch. That's particularly important to rural lagoon communities and fishing practices. And that has implications for well-being, food security, and for livelihoods. If we look at, if we move beyond those issues of climate change and look at those development-related impacts, we can see that the lagoons in the region are subject to issues around water quality that's negatively impacted by urban runoff, pollution from petroleum products, from agricultural products, discharge of industrial waste, including content of heavy metals, problems with sanitation, particularly lack of toilets, in both rural and urban locations, and again, that impacts water quality. There's a lack of access to effective waste management solutions. Continued use of imperishable plastics presents a growing problem and a buildup of solid waste. Resource depletion, so particularly around mangroves, and you'll see the picture of mangroves here. Is there a natural protection to coastal erosion and to flooding? And these are exacerbated by growing population at the coast. Obviously, they have an impact on habitats. That growing population, growing urban areas also tend to fragment lagoon habitats, not just in the lagoon itself, but around the lagoons. And we see that lagoons in the region are impacted by all of these challenges, at the same time providing key services to their local population. So we're seeing lagoon environments being degraded while still providing those ecosystem services. So at the Resilient Lagoon Network, one of our key goals, once we've built the network and started to provide a platform to help understanding about lagoons and raise the profile of lagoons, was to develop a framework as to how we might manage and govern lagoons sustainably. So we started with some key questions. So how do we understand the sustainability of a lagoon? How do we measure the sustainability? And what would be the key indicators of a lagoon that was in good health and seen as being sustainable? Then we wanted to know what the key aspects of good governance were for lagoons. So how to manage them well. How do we manage them? How do we govern them to ensure that their future is sustainable and they provide for future generations? And then we wondered about stakeholders. Who needs to be involved in governing lagoons and who informs that sustainable management? So those are our three key questions that we were focusing on to build a framework to help understand how to govern lagoons sustainably. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we then set about building that framework based on those key questions. So we wanted this to be very much based on the experience of lagoon stakeholders. So those that use, that live in, that are practitioners for, that manage lagoons. And we had input from, we also had input from the Resilient Lagoon Network. So from academics with diverse subject specializations, from sociology to civil engineering to ecotoxicology to ecology to geoscience. So big interdisciplinary understanding from that academic point of view. To garner the experiences and the input from stakeholders beyond academia, we had 2 stakeholder conferences and surveys. One was in March 2022, and that was all online. And then we followed that up with a stakeholder conference in Ghana that was hybrid, that also had people coming from across the region, not just Ghana, in July 2022. And that helped to give us the information to start to build this framework and start to understand the experiences of stakeholders and what they wanted out of a sustainable governance system for lagoons. We started to develop this framework, and then we had a focus group with lagoon practitioners to do a sense check. We had one from Nigeria, from Benin, and from Ghana to say, okay, you manage lagoons, how is this framework looking? I'll go through the framework in detail in a moment, but a bit of a spoiler here, some key things that we learned. The importance of stakeholders, absolutely critical, and those stakeholders are a very diverse group when you start to look at it. The human-based, the anthropogenic effects on lagoons are more severe, diverse, complex than we anticipated. And the issues surrounding climate change compound those anthropogenic impacts. We also discovered from others attending those stakeholder meetings and from communications we've had with coastal practitioners and researchers from around the globe, is that there is a global connection. Their lagoons are found worldwide and they face similar problems. So what I'm going to do now I've sort of set the scene, is talk a bit more about that framework in detail. So we have three aspects based around those three questions that we had. One aspect is around the indicators, the measures for sustainable lagoons. The next is around what are those tenets? What are those key parts of sustainable lagoon governance? What does good management of lagoons look like? And then who has, to use the phrase, who has skin in the game in this? Who are the stakeholders? Who need to be involved with lagoon governance and management? So I'll take each of those three in turn. I'll look at the indicators, the tenets, and the stakeholders. There's a lot on this slide, and I'm not going to apologise for that, because there are a lot of indicators you need to consider when you're looking at lagoon sustainability. Now, the key drivers of these indicators are around population growth, resource use, and climate change. And we have three areas. So if you want to understand how well your lagoon is doing, or a lagoon is doing in terms of sustainability, you need to be looking at the governance. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But involving stakeholders, including local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, very important. Planning systems need to be effective, and you need to have a framework that's integrated and that actually works. In terms of social and economic indicators, food security is absolutely critical. The provision of sustainable livelihoods for those communities around lagoons, access to healthcare and well-being support, effective sanitation systems, functioning ecosystem services, and then also provision for environmental education, so understanding lagoon environments for those stakeholders involved in lagoons. Environmental indicators involve water quality, ecosystem functionality, measures of biodiversity, functioning hydromorphology. And what we mean by that is that lagoon water system, its connection to the ocean and those lagoon cycles that are connected to the hydrological cycle, and sustainable resource use. So those are the things to look at if you want an understanding of or want to know what might indicate sustainable lagoon. Let's go on to look at the tenets of governance. Oh, no, sorry, I forgot I had an extra slide in here. We've mapped all of those indicators against the Sustainable Development Goals, and that's what I show here. I know it's a little bit busy, but it's just to give you that connection that we've taken those indicators and said, okay, I'm looking at this broadly, we can align them to Sustainable Development Goals, so we can sort of see the bigger picture with this. And this is the tenets of sustainable lagoon governance. So if you're governing a lagoon, what do you need to be concerned with? Well, one of the important things is that there's that governance is not just coming from the top. It needs to have that stakeholder involvement, so that bottom-up approach and that collaboration across all stakeholders. And those stakeholders need to be participating and all have an empowered role in that governance process. So whether you're a community member or an environmental manager or a town planner in the municipal authority, all of those people and more need to have a say in the governance. Needs to be inclusive also in that incorporates traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge of lagoons and how they operate. So by doing this, we're engendering an inclusive and equitable approach for all of those who are involved in lagoons in whatever way. And then in that framework, we have some directives, so how to involve local stakeholders and how to embed good governance practice. And those are what are in those two lower blue boxes. So I won't go into all of them in detail, but for example, how to involve your local stakeholders, involve schools, develop community-based projects, have media outreach, use advocates. And when you're embedding, and if we go to the other square there, embedding good governance practice, transparency is important, flexibility, accommodating different ideas. So all of these things are part of that embedding good governance practice. And we believe that collectively, if you consider all these together, we come up with cooperative action. And that's really important, that cooperation and collaboration. The final part of the framework really then is who's involved, who are the stakeholders. And I'd like all of you in the webinar today to think about where you might sit in this stakeholder map. So we have the communities, those that are lagoon side, but also local communities that maybe aren't directly located on the lagoon, but it's important for them to, but the lagoon is important to them. Then we have governance. So that might be national government. It might be local authorities. For some lagoons, transport and transportation authorities might be important. Traditional authorities are also key here. And then government agencies and departments. So a wide range of governments here. Commercial, again, might be transportation, might be business, might particularly be tourist focused, depending on where your lagoon is. And then we have a set of what we call influencers and those engaged in knowledge exchange. So that might be researchers and academics like myself, and Deb and Formulaya, NGOs, civil society organisations, international organisations, donors and funding agencies, such as the funding agency that supported the Lagoon Network, and religious organisations. That's very important for the region as well. They have a lot of influence around these communities. So take a look at that. Think about where you might fit into that stakeholder map. What I want to do for the last part of this talk really is then think about, so this is a framework. This is built on stakeholder experience and input. It tells you about what you might look for to indicate a sustainable lagoon, gives ideas on how to govern lagoons, and then considers who should be involved. The next stage is how you put this into practice, right? Because there's a framework and a concept. So if you want to know more about the Resilient Lagoon Network and you want to see that framework in one place, we have a website, the Resilient Lagoon Network, and the framework is there. We'd love you to be able to use it, look at it, think about where you might sit in it, how you might use parts of it, and tell us about that. We're not precious at all about how you use it. It's out there to be taken out into the world, to be applied. You might use it flexibly. You might come to us and say, actually, I don't understand this bit, but I'm really keen to know more. So we're happy to share what we expected for that part of the framework, to give us feedback. we'd love to be able to get support to do some pilot projects around lagoon governance and management, where we actually put this framework in place and monitor it. And we're looking for funding, hopefully, to be able to secure that. So really, at the moment, we're sharing this framework and our knowledge of lagoons, and going out to people that might be stakeholders in lagoons and saying, use it, tell us it doesn't work for you and why it doesn't work for you, because we're totally open to be able to adapt it. But it's very important to us that it just doesn't sit there in an academic document, and that it gets used, and that it helps to secure the sustainability of lagoons in the region, so across West Africa. So I think I'm actually a little bit ahead of time. I was going to finish 10:40, but and it's 10:35, but I guess it's better to have more time rather than run over. So we do have time for questions now. And my colleague, Dr. Debraha, is going to moderate those questions. So we can do hands up, we can put them in the chat, and I will stop sharing my screen at this point, so that I can see you all better. And I can see there's lots gone into there's some comments in the chat there. But
Thank you. Thank you, Sian. That was a very insightful and enlightening presentation.
You're welcome. Well, you input into it, you had a big say in how this was developed.
Thank you. So you have set the stage for a very rich discussion now. I think I'll just hand over to Deb to coordinate the Q&A session. Deb, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Doherty. I just want to say good morning and welcome to everyone once more. I'm Dr. Debraha. I am one of the members of the Resilient Lagoon Network. So thank you, Professor Davis-Volum, for this really insightful and very well explained presentation. But what I want to do now is to take this opportunity to open the floor to our respected participants here, which the last time I looked, there were 74 of us on the webinar, to share their opinions or to ask any question they might have with regards to the framework or anything specific that they feel they can contribute to the discussion with regards to sustainable lagoons. If I may just request Professor Davis-Volum to share that last slide, not the second last slide, so that we can ask the participants to identify where they feel they fit within that multiple complex stakeholder relationship that lagoons have. So I think it's your second last slide, Sean. Yes, there we go. That would be helpful for us to understand where your question is coming from. Please feel free to put up your hand or even put your question in the chat. So I have the chat open so I can have a quick look. Okay, we have a question now which says, thank you for inspiring presentation. Please, how do we align the Resilient Lagoon project with healthcare? Or does the lagoon sustainability include health of the inhabitants? Can I request Professor Davis-Volum to start off the discussion?
Yes, so I'm going to actually see if I can go back and see my slides here to those tenets of, let's see, to those. So we did include healthcare and well-being support, and obviously food security, water quality, effective sanitation all do feed into to human health. So yeah, I guess the short answer is yes, it is included in the framework.
Thank you. Do you want to, the person who asked the question, do you want to follow up? Because there is a sort of a question which has a very direct answer. So I'm going to answer that first, which says, is there any criteria for membership or partnership to contribute to the lagoon management? I'm guessing you are asking about becoming a member of the Resilient Lagoon, which, no, there isn't a criteria. If you're someone who feels strongly about sustainable lagoons, then please do subscribe to our newsletter. And Shan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so we have 12 founder members, but as we've worked on the framework and worked on raising awareness of lagoons, we've incorporated other organisations and colleagues. Some have wanted to be very involved and come to our regular network meetings, and others have just wanted to be just kept up to date with what we're doing. So if you can contact us, that would be really helpful. Yeah, and you can contact probably me directly. That's probably the best thing to do.
Oh, sorry, Zina, I didn't notice she does have a hand up. Zina, can I welcome you to the floor, and if you have a question?
All right, thank you very much. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Resiliency Group for organizing this exciting event. I think I'm learning, and then I'm learning so much from this particular event. So my name is Godfred. I'm from Ghana. I'm a student of international affairs, and I'm working on a project. My dissertation is on the adaptation strategies to the effect of climate change on peace and security in the Sahel region. So I have so much passion and interest with issues regarding to the effect of climate change, which you have made mention of in the presentation. However, I would like to ask if, as part of my project, I can contact your organization for some expert opinions and analysis with issues regarding to this effect of climate change. I'm currently looking for people to interview as part of the project to get a primary information on this particular topic. So I want to know if I can contact your group and if I can also reach out to anybody who have interest in this particular area or whose research topic is also on climate change, so I can be able to tap from their experiences. Yes, aside that, I would like to say that I'll also try and visit your website to learn more about your new framework and see how I can also implement part of it into my my project. Thank you very much for this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Zina. I think your PhD is extremely interesting. Shan, Dr. Davis Vollum, who presented, has put her email ID down in the chat, so you can contact her directly. But also just to let you know that if you spend some time on the website, there's a list of all the members who are part of the network, who I'm sure would be more than happy if you approach them to answer questions and anything that you might have. Okay. Thank you for coming along to this webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Zina. And so as you've just heard, yes, we'd be really happy to support any projects, and I can connect you. I'd be happy to do an interview with you, and I can connect you to other members of the network. It might even be appropriate for you to come to one of our network meetings and just talk about your work for 10 minutes. One member of the network is his area of expertise is climate change education, so you might be interested to connect with him also. He couldn't be here today, but yes, so absolutely, we're all about building the network and working collaboratively with practitioners and researchers from across the region.
Yeah, if I may also interject here, Naziru Imam, I think the website that you're trying to link to, that is different from the survey. So I have put down now, which we were going to do a little later, but then I've been ahead, is that there's a brief survey to capture your opinion about the webinar, the presentation that Professor Davis Vollum has made. The survey is now live. So if you want to give us your opinion, that would be very, very valuable. I'll go back to some questions here, Sean.
And I'll stop. Is it okay to stop sharing my screen?
Yes, I think so.
It just helps me to be able to see who's asking the questions then.
We have a question from Sarah Hemstock, who has previously also mentioned that is quite similar to small island context as well. So she says, my work side with NGO and civil society, but also work throughout national and local governments, kind of indicates that it requires a well-structured governance system. So if you wanted to say something about that. And she's kind of highlighted it specific to the Pacific region, where populations are quite small.
Sorry, I missed some of that. I was looking at the chat and I got distracted. Sorry.
I think Sarah's question. Sarah, are you there on the call? Do you want to?
Sarah's also a member of the Lagoon network. So
there we go. Sarah's here.
Hi, I'm just
hello.
Hi, yeah. So just basically pointing out that governance is really key to getting stakeholder involvement. So working through structures that are already existing within communities and trying to build those systems where they don't exist, because I know, like the area where you work, it's pretty informal settlements, so they don't always have the governance structures from like local government. They don't always have support and things like that, so you've got to be really mindful of how you work to engage all stakeholders and make sure that what you're doing is acceptable at all levels.
Yes, I'd agree. And actually, I'm trying to phrase this correctly. So I'm really excited. I'm going to be going to Lagos and visiting Lagos Lagoon soon. And actually, the discussions that I've had about governance and working with communities have been with NGOs rather than any sort of formal governance structure, because that tends to be where the organization is coming from. I think it depends exactly where you are. I think communities that are migrant communities often are the ones that have the least governance structure and are often treated differently to indigenous communities. So yeah, it's really complicated.
Thank you there. I have one question which says, thank you for the presentation. Do you have any plans to expand the network to other countries, especially East Africa? As the person Oppo is asking the question from Tanzania.
We would absolutely love to do that. We did do some work with colleagues in India, and we were very close to securing a grant to be able to do that, but didn't quite do it. But yes, we would love to particularly extend to coastal nations across Africa. So please do contact us or complete the survey and put a note in the survey as well, so we can collate information that way too.
So we've had interest from Malachi, who's doing their PhD on mangrove restoration for carbon sequestration, coastal resilience, livelihood, food security. I just think you're writing things from our framework there, Malachi. Thank you very much. Yes, please, as Shan has said, please do email her or anybody from the Resilient Network, and then we can, follow up with you.
Yeah, or put something in the survey, so we collate it all that way.
So I just want to flag up to everybody is that I have put the link to the survey. There are at the moment 80 of us in the call, so I'm hoping to get a lot of responses. It's just a very brief, it tells me it's about 6 to 8 minutes to complete, just to capture your opinions on what Professor Davis Volmia presented with regards to the Resilient Network and the framework.
I'm quite interested in who's in the seminar to be the webinar to, and we've heard from a couple of PhD students. I know Sarah's a practitioner, but I'm interested to know, what the backgrounds are of people that are here. So if you want to share that in the chat, or I can see some networking going along in the chat. That's really good.
We have somebody from NGOs, Ansu, who's from NGOs and Civil Society Organization. So Dr. Pearl here is a psychiatrist from Ghana, which is very, very interesting to know. Anybody else who wants to add? Oh, there is somebody from the Ministry of Public Health of Cameroon, which is welcome.
And then I think the other question I have for everybody is, are these online platforms helpful to bring people together and to connect people? Because I think it can be difficult to really find those connections and to build connections and to share best practice, share what challenges are, what successes are. And I'm interested to know whether this kind of event would be valuable to have again, and have it more open, and have people basically coming and sharing their work and their experiences.
I just wanted to add, sorry, Shannon, is that Dr. Doherty has also shared the link. And I just wanted to say that there is one bit at the top of the survey which requests for your email ID. That is only to be able to gather all or capture everyone who's been part of this webinar. And we can follow up if required with more information. So that's the main reason. Because when you leave Zoom, then we don't know who's been here.
So anybody got any thoughts on the usefulness of the Resilient Lagoon Network being providing a platform to bring people together to further understanding and share practice related to lagoons? Everybody's very quiet today. Hello. I can see some people trying to connect, but they're I don't know that their sound is working properly, or their microphone. Oh, okay. So there's a note that says, how do you access a survey if you're accessing the meeting from a phone?
It should still open up.
Okay.
If you click on it, it'll take you to the forms thing. It should still open up. Sarah's actually put in that events like this are very useful for sharing experiences and information, which I think one aspect of it is that we've had participants from various disciplines, from various parts of the world, to be honest, and coming at the same issue of sustainable lagoons from very different perspectives. So anybody have anything to add?
I did see a hand up, but then it went down again, and it wasn't a name. It was somebody that has a number for their.
And I think it's a great opportunity to network. I've just seen people exchanging email IDs also on the chat, which is great.
Yeah, that's really encouraging to hear.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So I think I should quickly say this since we still have a little amount of time. My name is Dr. Abdul Akil Sabah from Lagos State University, Nigeria. Although currently I'm in Malaysia. So basically, I want to appreciate today's presentation and the program right from the beginning to the end to this point. And I'm really interested because I'm a fishery scientist. And yeah, so I'm very, very much interested in the fisheries of the lagoons. So a lot of work has been done by our team, our department on different parts of the lagoons in Lagos. We have the Lagos Lagoon system, we have the Ekpe Lagoon, Badagry Lagoon, Lagos Lagoon, and the likes. So basically, my question is just to, because I've seen the framework and I couldn't really see where fisheries actually surfaces in the whole of the framework. So I was curious, a bit curious. I decided to ask that where does fisheries occupy in this current framework we are having on ground?
That is a really good question, and I'm going to share my screen again so that I can answer that question. So yes, fisheries are particularly important in lagoons, in rural lagoons. So the places where fisheries are embedded in the framework is around food security and fisheries, sustainable livelihoods with the small scale fishing and artisanal fishing, and sustainable resource use. And I haven't separated out the particular resources that are important there, but essentially they're fisheries and mangrove. Those are the two key resources. So although it's not explicit, that's where it's embedded within the framework. Okay. Is that helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. So I was just looking at a possibility. So I don't know the stakeholders you are working with.
Yeah.
Yeah, in different areas of the project. So I don't know if I want to state my interest. If perhaps there are ways in which we could collaborate to work, particularly in my own area of expertise regarding the fisheries of the lagoons, then I would love to express an interest.
Thank you. That's really welcome. And I guess fishing communities are within that lagoon side community. We've got the stakeholders. Again, we didn't separate out fisheries. And Deb and I actually had a PhD student that worked at a lagoon fishing community in Ghana and did research on the impacts of climate change on that fishing community. So we'd be really really interested to work with you. And I mentioned this before, but I am going to be in Lagos. It's my first time to come to Nigeria, so I'm very excited. Oh. And Dr. Doherty is hosting me, which I'm very generous for. And it would be I would be available to have some face-to-face meetings if people would be interested in doing that and talking in person rather than online. So again, please contact me.
Okay. Thank you. We are more than excited to have you in Lagos.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Although it's quite unfortunate that at the moment I'm not in Nigeria. So
yes, yeah, I understand that, but maybe somebody from your team is.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to highlight over here that we've had two other comments here from Ravi Chandran in India, who is doing his PhD in ecology and environmental sciences, as well as a consultant based in India. So he's given us his email ID. And Osuji, who is a graduate.
So he's at Yaba College of Technology, which is the same institution as Dr. Doherty. So hopefully we can connect that way.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about host communities.
Yeah.
Yes, public health is something that I don't have a lot of experience with, so I'm really keen to learn about about that. So my background is in the sort of physical science and in the geoscience and the coastal processes. So thank you for that invitation.
Okay, in essence of time here, thank you everyone. The chat will be open. Please do put your questions in. I would also really appreciate if you took this opportunity to fill in the survey and give us your feedback. And there is a bit where you put in your email ID, so that'll be a great place for us to have your contact as well. I will share it on the chat again. But thank you, Professor Davis-Wallen, for it was very insightful what you presented, as well as really well explained in terms of how the Resilient Network has created that framework, both from conceptual academic underpinnings, but also from real world examples of things that we've seen across. So I'll pass the floor on to Dr. Doherty if she's still here. I think.
Yeah, she's right there.
Yeah,
and it would be
thank
what I'm
you,
seeing in
Dr. Deb. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Deb. All right. So I'm really excited about Professor Davis' visit to Nigeria. And she'll be visiting Yaba College of Technology also. So some of our colleagues here would have, the opportunity to meet with her and have more discussions. Dr. Sabah, if you can link up with me, so if you have some colleagues who also want to meet Prof during her visit in Lagos, so we can arrange something. All right, so finally, we're rounding up. We are coming to the end of the webinar, and we're going to be having some closing remarks by Professor Eukaria Owachi. Is she here? So she'll be giving the closing remarks.
Thank you so very much,
Right.
Dr. Doherty, for me. In closing, I would like to thank you so much. In closing, our attitude from AutoAid National Research Hub to our distinguished speaker, Professor Sian Davis-Wallen, University of Nottingham, you actually make at the University of Nottingham, 2015, 2016. So it really took me home and how precisely you have delved into this topic, especially connecting us to the indicators of sustainable lagoon, taking us to the governance structure through the social and economic angle, and ultimately to the environment if we must make it work. So I would like to thank you again, and I would like to thank precise moderator, Dr. Fumi Doherty, who has made this seamless. I'd like to thank AutoAid UK for always supporting us in our works to building the capacity of researchers in Nigeria and reaching out us in Nigeria and Africa. I would like to thank in a very special way the Q&A facilitator, Deb, you've taken the question, bringing out thoughts from our researchers. I really like that skill. Thank you. We'd like to also thank all the officers at the Resilient Lagoon Network for your participation and your hand of collaboration with AutoAid National Research Hub. I also would like to thank all the officers for the various roles they have played. Those has gone well and giving information at the beats to make sure that everybody's carried along. I'd like to thank all the facilitators and also the participants from Ghana, from Tanzania, from Nigeria, from Cameroon, not just a continental, but a topic resonating with our to have a sustainable and to care for our lagoon. I would like I would like all of us to have this commitment.
Professor Eukaria, we can't hear you again. I think our network.
Her network is
Hello?
bad.
Yes. Professor Eukaria, are you still there? Okay. I think we can have, everyone can turn on their camera right now. Everyone can put on their camera now, and then we can take a photograph. All right. Can you still mute your camera? Dr. Aneyo, please, can you just mute everyone?
I've done that. I've done that.
Oh, some people are still having and not turning in their camera.
I've turned my camera, but I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I think
I'm really
okay, Professor Eukaria is back.
Yeah, before our group photograph,
I'm taking the group photograph, but it's fine. I'm just
yes, thank you so much. I got kicked out. Yeah, before of us to take the knowledge gained today from this very interactive session to channel it into actionable initiatives that will really contribute to the preservation and the enhancement of our lagoon ecosystem. We mentioned quite a lot of them. Together, we can make a significant difference in creating a more sustainable and resilient future. So I want to, on behalf of the Lagoon Network, thank you immensely for your active participation and looking forward to a continued collaboration and progress in this vital field that we have collectively chosen. Let's stay connected for future events by these two collaborators and all our endeavors aimed at building a more sustainable world. Thank you. So please turn on your video. Let's have a beautiful photograph.
Okay, you want us to have take another one. Okay, we can take another one.
Oh,
yes, we did.
Okay, I wasn't there, so
okay, no. I'm taking another one with you now. All right. So I think I've done that.
That's fine. All right. Yes. That's
Thank
fine,
you.
Sue.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, so we look forward to seeing Professor Volume in Lagos.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Love.
All right.
Well done.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Professor Eukaria, thank you. Professor Sian, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for joining.